officially started on working on the game. We're going to be working on changing this blue square into a title room where you get a nice little animation, you get some music, and basically it actually starts to look like a game at that point. So let's get cracking. All right, so we got this over here. Let me pull up my reference code here. So as you can see, we are going to have a foreground asset instances background and the background here layer for our room. The background layer is doesn't really need to exist, but we can just go over here to our background asset, which is our first bit. We have our sprite title background stars, which is just a bunch of stars blinking. Now in the NES, this effect was created by doing a bunch of palette swapping of all these tiles. But here we're just going to use a sprite because that's way easier and much simpler. Now, I previously mentioned that I did have a copy of the title that actually animated the little shooting star that comes across the screen there, but I didn't end up using it because instead I wanted to if we're going to have the stars blinking, we have to separate the little meteorite away from the blinking stars. Otherwise, you'd end up having the meteorite come shooting across the screen every time the star background loop finished. And that wouldn't be very nice. This could be solved if GameMaker had a way to have sprites loop only once. That'd be kind of useful. But unfortunately, it does not in the assets. It's not that I know of. Trying to right click and there's no options. So, anyways, then of course we have our foreground, which would be the sprite title foreground, which is all this. Now, again, in the NES, this was all actually done with tiles and stuff. But again, here, I'm just doing it all with the sprite because it's easier. And I didn't want to... When I was making this, I thought, oh, well, that'd be great if I could just do it all from sprites rather than actually bothering me with any tiles involved with anything. And later on, that came back to bite me a little bit. But, I did figure out a way around it, but at the same time, it's like, oops, that's a bit of a problem. Anyway, so we also have our instances, our text crawl, and the falling star. So let's get moving on putting this all together here. Come back to the background. Here. There we go. We want to just make this black again because the only reason why we had it blue is so that we could tell that it was there. And we're going to want to make our two asset layers. So 1 and 2. Drag one up here. Call this background asset. You can call it whatever you want. That's just what I called it. That's it. And for the background asset, we'll make our grid snap at 8 on all of these because it makes it easier. There we go. Let's open up our assets. Come down to our sprites, sprite title main stuff, and grab sprite title background stars. And we're going to want to put that at 0, 8. As you can see down there at the very bottom, you have a little thing that says 0, 8. And foreground asset. Sprite title foreground. Just drag this in and we'll put you at 0, 8 as well. Why do we put these at 0, 8? Well, because in the NES, the actual resolution of the game was 224 in height. So we have to move everything down by 8 pixels in order to get it to look proper in the actual in the in-game. Let's see. So that just leaves instances. So let's come over here to our objects, and we're going to create a new group here. Call it, let's see. Call it title objects. I'm going to put a slash in there. Create an object, obj underscore falling underscore star, and create an object. Begins with text and crawl. For the falling star, it's very simple. Give it the sprites, and if I find it somewhere, title and menu sprites, sprite star, sprite little x. What did I use that for? Anyways, so the sprite star, add event, create, and give it a timer equals 0. It is basically just going to tell it, okay, after X seconds, start falling, and then destroy yourself. So if timer is greater than or equal to sec times 4, remember sec is our little game underscore get speed to game speed FPS, so that'd be 60 in this case, because our game is 60 FPS. So after 4 seconds, if timer underscore mod 4 is equal to 0, then x plus equal 2.25, y plus equal 2. So yeah, if every fourth frame, increment our position by 2.25 and 2. This will give us a diagonal-ish look as we cross the screen. It'll be slightly tilted towards the right. And after 6 seconds, destroy us. So after 4 seconds, start falling. After 6 seconds, destroy. And timer plus plus. Very simple. Come back to our room title. And in the instances, we're going to want to drag in our falling star to position 43.8. And hold control to be able to position it 43.8. There we go. And now we can start working on the text crawl. Over here, once again, title, sprites, sprite title, crawl text, add an event, create, and a step event as well. So this is fairly simple. We are going to want to start off with using one of our object scripts, position camera 0, 0. This just ensures that our camera is at position 0 and inside the room and ready to go. If you remember correctly, it just changes my X previous and Y previous, and then sets my camera state to free, and then sets my XY to the XY given. Then we want to enable underscore input. Now, enable input here, remember correctly, tells the input object to go back to the standard state. And if we come back down to our, what is it, control U, no, what is it that, there it is, control M, collapses all the regions. And we wanted I want the transition object here. True transition. No, I want object trans. Oh, there it is. Yeah. I wanted to check here my code. When the transition is off, yeah, we don't reset our input. So you'll have to do that manually or set it up so that when your transition finishes somehow, it will turn on the inputs. So in this case, we're just going to tell it enable input. That way, when the player is in the title room, he can press start and go on to the next room. Oh, really, in this case, I think I'll do a little live code here, then just say, we'll actually move this over to the step event in a bit then. We'll need a step event, by the way. So, but first we're going to do Q underscore new underscore song, music underscore title underscore music. Priority 1, no looping, false, and 0. Now, if you remember in our music object that we created, the reason why we say false here is because we actually have this set up here so that when it sees that, music title has been selected as our playback music, then we should set our loopback point to be at 68.45 seconds and loop it back to 9 seconds. And that will actually, I won't show it off here because that would require me sitting around for an entire minute to let the music play and then it will loop back. But you can test it out for yourself. It should work just fine. And finally, get y underscore 1 underscore is equal to 13 and target y underscore 2 underscore is equal to negative 349 and speed underscore is equal to 0.25. So this will be how fast the title moves across the screen, where it moves to and from, and so on and so forth. So if we come over here, we're going to start with is updating our audio timestamp. So we basically get our current timestamp of where the music is, because based on where the music track is, we're going to tell it to move or not move. So if underscore audio underscore position is greater than 40, so if we're at greater than 40 milliseconds, then we want to y is equal to approach my y towards target d 2 underscore by speed underscore, else if audio underscore position is greater than 9.2. So I remember if we're doing a sort of else if cascade, you have to have the largest at the top and then the smallest underneath it if you're doing a greater than check. Then y is equal to approach my y towards target and y underscore 1 by speed underscore. So what this does is it causes, when we are under 9.2 seconds, raise me up so that the title name, so it's a part of the object. If we actually come into our instances here and drag our title object into the game here, let me find out where it's supposed to be, at 0.144. So 0.144. You know, I wish it would show up this thing when I'm dragging it from there, you know, instead of having to actually place it, then it will start showing it. Anyways, so 0.144. So yeah, our text rises up, shows Zelda 2 Adventure Link does that for a few seconds until then it decides to scroll more, until it scrolls all the way off the top of the screen and then rotates back down to the bottom where it does it all again. So we need one last little bit here. Else y is equal to y star. So if we are outside of our time zones, then loop is back down to the bottom. So yeah, remember the music will loop back to 9 here. And when that happens, it will loop back down to the bottom. So ingenious, right? Well, it's actually very tight, the timing on all that. So last but not least, we'll just have a little bit to move to the next screen. Control V that in. And we have if input pressed, input action dot start, and transition finished. This is important there because we want to make sure that the player can, oh, well, I guess I do have that in there as well, so we don't actually have to worry about the enable input because this is the only way it can input is if the transition is finished. It basically just checks to see that you're in transmode.off. If you're in transmode.off, then it returns true. So it's actually a very useful, very important function. So if the transition is finished, then the player can press start and move on to the next room. So it feeds transition to the next room. Q silence 0.25. So Q silence, remember, just tells the audio tracks to go to 0 and have nothing as the play information at that point. And remember, if default, so in this case I set audio ID to no one, then loop back from to no one and loop back to no one. So that should be all we really need to get going here. So we got our camera positioned, we enable the input so that the player can actually do inputs, we queue up a song, and we start this title object looping around the screen. I'll need to actually make a room here, so let's go down to rooms, create room, underscore save underscore select. Once again, change that to 6 by 240, and should be good. Yeah, we're good to go. Let's give it a test. There's a shooting star, disappears. Fancy music is hit. Here comes a title. And it pauses right above the sword. And after X amount of time, the title information starts scrolling. Here it comes. No. We're almost there, right? There it is. There we go. We got title text scrolling. And the music will keep playing. And once it actually gets to the loopback point, it will loop everything back to the start. And it would all start again. Awesome. Great. Thank you, everybody, for enjoying. This was a good episode. So we are currently at 20 minutes. Great. So I look forward to working with you next time where we get started working on the save select stuff, which is something that actually a lot of people express interest in whenever I see them in the GameMaker Discord. They're always like, how do I do a save system for my game? Well, you're about to find out. So stay tuned. And thank you, everybody, for joining me. And remember, if you want to support this program. If you enjoyed the code, if you think it's been useful, throw me a few bucks on my Patreon, linked in the description below. And there are some small perks for you if you involved, if you want to, if you care about that kind of stuff. But anyways, beyond that, good luck with your programming.